Thank you. Can you dim the lights, please? Thank you. Dear President, colleagues, distinguished guests, students, thank you so much for the great honor to be here at Tohoku University. Thank Komura for the kind introduction, you know. Maybe I should skip some parts of my lecture because you gave already such a big lecture. So thank you so much. It is a great pleasure and a great honor to be here again in Sendai. I was here several times, you know, in the time we cooperated with Professor Harada, and it's always a delight to be here, and especially at this wonderful campus, yeah, and these beautiful facilities you have here. So thanks for the hospitality. It's absolutely great. So today, you see, I will talk about, yeah, the art of building small, don't worry. But I changed the title to The Joy of Discovery, because that is what we try to do at universities. Fundamental research, also applied research. And I have a big program where I work also together with industry. I work together with medical people, as you will see. I work on new materials. But I will give you a little bit of a flavor of our discoveries in the field of molecular machines, yeah, as Komura already mentioned. But I also want to talk a bit about my personal life and the joy of discovery. And I have to, Rojun, thank you very much for inviting me and to organize this together with your colleagues. It's wonderful. We had a beautiful symposium so far yesterday, fantastic science and discussions. So I want to give a credit to the young people, all the young stars that did such a great job. I learned a lot. So when I started and discovered, yeah, the first molecular motors, people ask me, why are you doing this? What is it useful for? Useless science? This question was asked to the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers who were flying for the first time in 1903, you remember? And people were saying, why does man need to fly? If God wanted us to fly, he would have given us wings, like a bird. Now I came with a Boeing from Amsterdam to Tokyo and then to Sendai, not with such a primitive machine. But of course, nobody would have predicted that 100 years later, we will build Boeing 747 or Airbus in Europe, yeah, that can carry 400 people all across the continents to Japan or to America. This is a fantastic example of modern engineering where chemistry, physics, material science, engineering, mathematics, computer science, all these things come together to build such a fantastic machine. We admire the flying bird, no? I admire the bird, it's fantastic. See the bird flying. But a Boeing or an Airbus is not flying like a bird. This is completely artificial. But also remember, try to transport 400 people from Japan to Europe with a pigeon. You will fail. 400 people, 1,000 kilometers an hour, 10,000 miles, yeah, across the ocean. But also we should be very modest as scientists. But in 2025, my biology friends tell me we cannot build a bird. We cannot build a single cell of the bird, not one of the machineries of the bird. Yes, we should be modest. There's still a lot to be discovered. So, why fundamental science? I often get this question, and I'm sure your president, all the people get this question. Why do we need to put so much money in fundamental science? Remember, who has not a smartphone? Can you raise your hand if you have not a smartphone? Everybody has a smartphone. I see examples here. Yes? Which fundamental scientific questions were asked? Novel insights and discoveries to build a smartphone. Remember, it was 1940s and the early 50s of the past century that chemistry made the first displays, the first liquid crystals, physics made the first transistor, 75 years ago. The first computer was built by IBM, which was as big as this hall, but could do way less than the chip in your smartphone. A 50-year route to build a smartphone. Remember, physics, transistors, chemistry, liquid crystals and batteries, engineers, devices, computer scientists, the programs. This was all needed. And not forget, we have only smartphones for 17 years now. And you agree, eh? It changed the world completely, the way we communicate. And it was these guys, your colleague here in Japan, but also Goodenow and Whitem, they got the Nobel Prize in 2019 for the lithium-ion battery. They discovered this fundamental principle in the 80s. Yeah? Otherwise, we would not have smartphones because we could not power them. Otherwise, we would not have electric cars now. Remember, fundamental discoveries and a long journey to change the world. So, another example, this is one of my heroes, Kathleen Carrigo. You remember, together with Drew Weissman, she found mRNA, yeah, that is the basis for vaccines against COVID. We all suffer COVID, remember, COVID-19, yeah? Fundamental science in 1980. Nobody believed that. She didn't even got a fixed position at the university because she said this is not important. But she persisted. That's something else in science. Perseverance. Believe in your dreams. And in 2020, yeah, that was the solution. To make a vaccine in 1 year. A solution to save mankind. I think we should be very proud on science and on our scientists. So, the joy of discovery, you see here the beautiful garden of science. It is an adventure in the unknown. It's an adventure for me, it's an adventure for the professors here, it's an adventure for the students. Because we go this path to the future and we ask questions. Ladies and gentlemen, the question is the most important in science. What are the questions you are going to ask? And of course, there are many challenges, dreams, and opportunities. Challenges, yeah, for the students and scientists, dreams, yeah, and opportunities for society and industry. And often we get lost. We get completely lost in this beautiful garden. You know, I'm building molecules and I enjoy the beauty of the molecular world. But often we get lost and we hit upon questions and problems that we have not even think about. And often these are the most beautiful questions and the most beautiful discoveries. Accidentally, yeah? Serendipity. That is really important in science. I cannot emphasize this enough. Serendipity. Accidental discoveries. So it's not, this is a message for the students. Don't be afraid that something goes wrong. Because from a field experiment, you might learn something or you might make a discovery that is fantastic. So, facing our future. Because I get the question, you know, by young people often, can we still discover something? There are so many interesting challenges. How are we going to reduce CO2 emission by 95%? How are we going to recycle our materials? How to fly without kerosene? How to feed 10 billion people in the future? Many scientific questions will come that will help us to solve these problems. Yes? And for chemistries, of course, remember, let me first say our materials. I brought this plastic here. You see, this is a bottle. Yeah? How to recycle the bottle? It's not so easy, eh? You can burn, yeah, mechanical recycling, but this is more than one type of plastic. So it's a composite. That's a really problem. And then, you know, you say, but you know, we will use paper. Look, a paper cup. That's very nice, eh? But you realize inside the paper cup there is a tiny film of plastic, a micrometer film, because also otherwise the water or the coffee or the tea will straight go to the paper. Now, how to recycle this? The tiny film of plastic, to get it out. I challenge you guys, try to get it out. It's not so easy. So we have big challenges for the future. And I think science together will bring the solution. So chemistry, I'm a chemist. It's the creating science, because we make molecules and materials. So the fusing our future, sustainable processes and products, reinventing materials. How are we going to fly without kerosene in our planes? That's not easy, eh? Think about it. Changing the face of the chemical industry, our medicine. We do a lot of pharmaceutical industry, trial and error, thousands and thousands of materials before we have a new medicine. It takes 10, 14 years, billions of dollars. When we take the advantage of science, biology, molecular biology, chemistry, physics, yeah, together with the medical people, pharmacy, we might go to molecular design. So many fundamental questions, challenges and perspectives for industry and society. So this is the future of all the young people here, the academia. It's absolutely wonderful. So, towards a sustainable future, we have to go far beyond our horizon today. So there is a lot to discover. So the question is, what was my horizon when I started? This was my horizon. You see, I lived in the north of Holland. I grew up on a farm. My parents were farmers. And this was my horizon. This was the border of Germany. And you see, there was a lot of wildland. And we crossed the border, and we had this, when I was a small kid, we were adventuring, yeah, trying to go in the wilderness and to discover. So I started reading books about discoverers, adventurers, and then on the farm, there is a lot to discover, eh? And so, you see, I felt like this young man here, looking at this is the discovery of phosphorus. And I was so fascinated by these books about discoveries. And so this is my parents, yes, and I was asking my father, why is this red and why is this white, you know? And he had not a good answer, although my father and mother were very clever, but of course they had never the opportunity to go to high school, gymnasium or to universities, because they had to work in the farm to make a living. And so when I grew up, I already was very much engaged with Mother Nature, yeah, asking questions, asking questions all the time. And then I went to high school. This was my teacher, Mr. Op de Weg, and he was chemistry and physics teacher, and he was absolutely fantastic. He was such an inspiring person, and he did experiments with us. I'm sure when I ask you, here the senior people, you all remember one teacher that make a difference in your life, that was very inspiring for you, yeah, that set the stage for you. So then I went to university. You saw already this building, yeah, from Komura's talk. This is the main building of the university. And then my professor, when I started, yeah, realized from my village, nobody ever went to university. Eh? We were a small village, poor area. I was one of the first students that went to university. So you see here, this was my professor. He was American. He gave me a very difficult problem. But then after a few weeks, I made my first molecule. This was my first molecule that I made. And I came to his office and I said, look, I made this. And he said, Ben, this is great. Nobody in the world ever made this molecule, not even in America. It was absolutely useless. But I was so proud because it was my molecule. I did it. Can you imagine? So then I want to give credit to our teachers. Before I do that, I want to give memory of Koji Naganishi, who was several years at this university. He's one of the most famous chemists in the world. He passed away. Yeah, he told us the beauty and magic of the molecular world. And this, you remember his famous molecule, gingolite, which is a very famous, of course, in Japan. And I admired, and I got a lot of inspiration from him. And then I had a long cooperation with Professor Harada, who is now he is here in the audience. I'm extremely pleased. And he's emeritus at this university, and we did some beautiful work together. So thanks to our teachers in elementary school, in high school, yeah, at the universities, because teachers open windows and shape the future with our young talents. Don't forget that. That's really important. So, I go to schools a lot, so I'm back in school. Yeah, we do experiments in the classrooms, elementary school and high school. So I started a foundation to go to schools with students, and we try to inspire young people, you know, at a very young age, as you can see. So, after the PhD, I went to Shell, This is the main Shell laboratories in Amsterdam at that time. I went to Shell to work for the big multinational company. You know Shell, the big oil company. And I worked in the UK in the Shell Bioscience Center. And then I decided to go back to university because I wanted to do research, my own group, build my own group, work with the students. Yeah, and this was me going back to university. You see, this was my students found this on Twitter. And they said on Twitter, we chemists are lucky. You see, I have a bit longer hair. This was way back in the 80s, you know, many years ago. We chemists are lucky he chose academia instead become a rock star. Now, I tell you, I cannot play music. So I'm not a rock star. But what I said at those days is the beauty of chemistry is that I can create my own molecular world. And this is what I tried to do my whole career. So, I work with molecules, building molecules, the art of building small, there we are, yes. Building molecules in the laboratory, chemical synthesis, and we developed a passion for molecules. How to build molecules and materials. And what I want to do is to show you some examples of our research, what we discovered, what we're working on. So, just for the people that are no chemists, chemical synthesis is like Lego. So you take A plus B to go to C, C plus D to go to E, etc. This is, for the medical people, this is a very famous molecule. This is Taxol. This is one of the most important anti-cancer drugs. You see, it's extremely complicated, and it's life-saving for women that have breast cancer. So it's used also here in Japan, it's used in every clinic. But it's very complicated and it needs many steps and everything should be precise. All the atoms, you know, the three-dimensional structure, everything should be precise, otherwise it will not work. So in the laboratory we built molecules and materials, and the nice thing is that we have colleagues all over the world. The same holds for chemistry, but also for physics, mathematics, medicine, because we have universal languages, yes? I don't speak Japanese, but when I go to Japan, or when I go to China or South America, everybody knows this is sugar, and this is the periodic table of the elements. Universal languages in our disciplines, okay? When the mathematics goes to America, he can talk with his colleagues because they know the same formula. We have no borders, we go beyond frontier. I want to emphasize this, international cooperation and a passion for discovery. I think that is what makes us a big scientific family. So let me remind you of the words of Louis Pasteur. Because nowadays there is a lot of talk about borders. I don't want to talk about politics, but people talk about borders. Remember, discovering our future. Science knows no country, because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch that illuminates the world. Louis Pasteur, 150 years ago. Let's keep the torch burning together. That is our mission. So, this is the periodic table. For the non-chemist, we have atoms, we have small molecules, we build bigger molecules. This is Mendeleev, you know. I think he is as famous as Newton and Einstein because he discovered that this is the relation between all the elements we learned in school, you remember. So everything you see here, everything, this building, the benches, the water, your own body is made of these elements. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the formula of your body. I don't know if you remember. Hydrogen 375 million, oxygen 132 million, carbon 85 million, and then one lonely cobalt. Rojon, can you stand up for a moment? You might wonder, why is there so much hydrogen and oxygen? You know, this fellow, hydrogen, oxygen, 60% water. Can you imagine? And a few other molecules. He looks very good, good shape, Look, 60% water. This stuff, can you imagine? Hold this for a moment. 60%, yeah? Please hold it for a moment. 60% water, a few other molecules that make this body. But it works perfectly. Now the question to all of you, because I know now you all have a smartphone, is there more distinct elements in your body or in your smartphone? This is the distinct elements in your body. Now, a smartphone, you know, is there more elements or less elements? Look, this is the elements in the smartphone. there is more distinct elements in your smartphone than in your body. And I agree with your president that your body is by far the most complex thing in the world that we know. But look, your smartphone, from a chemical perspective, is pretty complex, eh? It has more distinct elements than your own body. Don't forget. So, we have small molecules, ethylene, yeah, carbon and hydrogen. Ethylene is the basis for a lot of plastic, 160 million tons a year. We have vitamin B12, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, cobalt, many elements, very complex structure. Only 35 tons a year, the world production. Why? Because we need only microgram quantities to stay healthy. This was called, when it was made by Woodward and Escher-Moser, the Mount Everest of synthetic chemistry, when they first made vitamin B12, the Mount Everest of synthetic chemistry. Small and big, huge volume, small volume. So this is what chemistry makes. You see, the components of your smartphone, drugs, cables, soap, clothes, the components of your car. Don't forget, 50% of your car is plastic. Chemistry is called the creating science. Of course, we don't work in isolation, eh? We work together with physics, mathematics, engineering, with the pharmaceutical and the medical people to make all these things. This is what we can do. But what we cannot do, ladies and gentlemen, is something that moves. You see me moving all the time, eh? I wave my hand. I can talk to you. Look, nothing is moving, but in your body, everything is moving. Rotary motions, bio-nanomotors that transport things in your cell, the ribosome, which is a robot that produces the proteins in your body. This one, use the bacteria. It has a motor that makes it swimming in your guts. It can go forward and backward. It's absolutely fantastic. And look, the optical switching in your eye. Okay? This is molecular nanoscience in the real world, in the biology. So, it was Richard Feynman, a very famous professor, yeah, who said, there is plenty of room at the bottom. What did he mean? He meant not to go to the basement. No, he said, look, we are going down, down, smaller, smaller. This was the first computer I mentioned. Now we have chip technology of a few nanometers, yeah, over the years, top down. But in your body, in nature, it's bottom up, eh? From small to bigger. Atoms, molecules, and then we build up things. So 50 years later, it was mentioned, these two colleagues, I had the privilege to go to Stockholm. So, just to keep everything on track, 1 nanometer is 1 billion of a meter. So if I take one, you see, I take one hair here, eh? You can see my hair? No? Look carefully, eh? You cannot see it? One hair. The one hair, the cross section is 80,000 nanometer. It's huge. The cross section of one hair compared to the size of molecules. And does size matter? Yeah, of course. When you go to a beach, yeah, in the summer, and you go to a pebble beach and you drop down, it hurts, eh? But when you go to a sandy beach, it's so nice. But these are small particles. You find them everywhere, yeah? So a lot of nanotechnology is about size. So you can find these products. You see nanoparticles in nanosensitive creams, yeah? They are so nice, you know. But they are also a bit expensive. Or you find high-definition TVs, you know, LCD screens, you see, with quantum dots. 6 nanometer, 2 nanometer. They give very, very nice, yeah? If you see the sumo wrestling next time, take such a screen. Then it's much better. We like nanoparticles, tiny particles, nanotechnology. But this is not soft material. This is hard material. It's about size. So we work on soft materials. But you might wonder, how can we see at the nanoscale? And of course, we have new microscopes, yeah? I know they installed here just a new cyclotron, yeah, a big facility. But of course, the fact that we have all these new techniques, like STM and AFM and so, new physical techniques, equipment, we can see. You see, IBM wrote Nano USA with CO on the cross-section of a human hair. You can write 250 million letters. So you can write part of your library of your university on the cross-section of a human hair. These are nanoscopes, you know, scanning tunneling microscope. They are like a needle. And the needle ends at the tip with one atom. And you can feel and see atoms. And we use it a lot in our research. So, molecular switches, dynamic control of function. You know what a switch is, eh? You switch on your car, you switch on the light, you switch on your smartphone. The most beautiful one is in your eye. Yeah, we all learned this in school. Yeah, switch on, switch off. So this is retinol. This is a band molecule. And you switch to a linear molecule. This is the light switch in the human eye. Not one switch, but there are millions and millions, yeah, that allow me to see you, this lady, and she can see me, eh? Millions of these switches switch with light, and then a signal goes to the brain, and then we can switch. But most important, they have to go back, eh? If they only go in one direction, I would see you only one time, and then it would be finished. So they have to switch back. That's crucial. So we built molecular switches for information storage. So these are the structures of the molecules. Komura mentioned already this type of structures. So this is where we started, because I wanted to do information storage, computation, with molecules, mimicking the eye. So we built these switches, switching back and forth, and we could do information storage, you know. This is what we developed together with physics. You see this gold, and every gold has one layer of switchable molecules. So this is a compact disc, yeah? I'm sure some young people don't know what a compact disc is, but because now we have smartphones, but this is a compact disc, yes? And when I was a student, we all wanted to have compact discs because that was the new technology at that time. And so we did, together with Philips company, we made a kind of compact disc to make zeros and ones at the molecular level. With light, not with electricity, with light. And you can store, you see, on one compact disc, 240 years of music, this megabytes. This is not reality yet, but in principle you can do that. Information storage on one disc, 240 years of music. You can play continuously, your grandchildren and your grandparents, for 240 years with only one disc. Of course, this is not reality yet, because then the molecules have to be very close together. And then it's very difficult to address one single molecule, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. This is a problem we have not solved. So if there is a brilliant student that wants to help me to solve this problem, please come to Groningen. You are more than welcome to help me to solve this. So we put a lot of effort on smart medicine, yeah? From fundamental science to application. Because when you have a switch, you can switch something on and off. And so what we do is smart pharmaceuticals. So you have a drug that's inactive. I mean, I see here in front of me, yeah, somebody who works in the medical school. And the medical people, they like to give you some pharmaceutical that is active, of course. Otherwise, we don't like our medical people anymore. If your doctor prescribes you something that does not work, it's not interesting. We want to have it inactive and activate it exactly on the spot. Switch it on, off, off, on, with high spatial temporal control. So you see, switching a medicine on with a light signal. So you have here an infection, you see? And you take an antibiotic, and it goes everywhere, also in the guts, to your normal bacteria, the healthy bacteria. And you have the problem with antibacterial resistance. But we want to switch it on only here, precise therapy. High precision in therapeutic action. We work on two problems, bacterial resistance and cancer treatment, because the World Health Organization says bacterial resistance is one of humanity's ticking time bombs. You know, bacterial resistance is a real problem, eh? And cancer treatment, yeah, I'm sure you're all aware that chemotherapy gives a lot of side effects, yeah? You get nasty side effects of chemotherapy because it hurts also a lot of cells, other cells in your body. If you could precisely, yeah, treat with chemotherapy, activate tiny tumors that the surgeon cannot remove, it would be, this is a kind of dream, you know? A kind of dream that you do imaging, you find these tiny tumors that the surgeon in the hospital cannot remove. Then you take the drug, and then with a laser, you activate precisely on the spot. Then you can have high precision therapy. That's what we are working on together with the people in the medical school. So this is antibiotics, and you know one of the big problems is biofilm formation. Yeah, it's really serious, especially for elder people. When you have a hip implant, you often have to go back to the hospital because, you know, there is biofilms and they are very difficult to treat. So we make antibiotics. This is Cipro, which is a broad spectrum antibiotic. We build in a light switch. You see here the trans, you see here the cis. This is off, this is on. So we can now grow and control bacteria by switching on with light and switching off. And you see here, this is what my students did. They take a Petri disk. This is how we grow bacteria, of course. Yeah, here the bacteria live, here the bacteria are died. Because you take a mask, yeah, you irradiate only here and not there. And you will appreciate they make a yin-yang figure of bacteria growth in the laboratory. And now we are doing experiments in animals because it's a long journey to go to the patient. But we now develop this further, and we don't do resistance buildup, and we can control biofilm formation, hopefully, in the future. Another example is chemotherapy. You see here bortezomib. It's used in the clinic. Again, we build in a light switch, yeah, and with visible light, we can switch on and off, yeah, the activity. And again, this is fundamental research, ladies and gentlemen. This is not in the clinic yet, because it's a long journey to go from the lab to the clinic. But that's why we need fundamental research. But hopefully in the future, we can avoid side effects in chemotherapy. Then the cell membrane, yeah, you all know what a cell is. This is a cell, and the cell has this nice wall, yeah, that's called the membrane. And what we did is, together with our friends in molecular biology, we took a protein from a spider, the frag protein. You know, some spiders, insects, are dangerous, eh? Because they have these toxins, toxic proteins. And we took such a toxin, and we built on a light switch, yeah. So you need genetic engineering to modify the protein. You build in a light switch, yeah, and then we switch with light, and it digs into the cell membrane because these proteins bind to cell membrane, and we can control the pore formation in the cell membrane. And we target cancer cells, and we drill a hole in a cancer cell. So these go to cancer cells. We switch with light, it drills a hole, and it kills the cancer cell. Once again, this is early stage, but you can imagine we are very excited, and our friends in the medical school as well, because maybe in the future we will do molecular surgery in this way to target cancer cells. And now, of course, we also want to go to neuron, to the brain, but that's much more difficult to get into the brain to treat brain tumors, etc. But I think it will be possible in the future. Now, I show you one more example, and then I will show you some molecular motors, because you give me plenty of time to lecture this afternoon. So this is photo control of the circadian rhythm. And you might know there's your circadian rhythm. You know jet lag, eh? When you travel, you know, from one continent to the other. Like earlier this week, I had a little bit of problem with sleeping because you get a jet lag when you fly. Now, I didn't know that, but in every cell in your body, there is a circadian rhythm. Every cell. Look, in the morning, at 2 o'clock, you have the deepest sleep, yeah? And at 6:45, sharpest rise in blood pressure, yeah? And then look, highest alertness at 10 o'clock. At noon, you know, afternoon, yeah? At 15:30, oh, it's almost 15:30, in half an hour. Fastest reaction time. I will ask you a question. Then you see highest blood pressure at 7 o'clock, and then it goes to melatonin, etc. So this circular rhythm is everywhere in the cell, and it's really important for your health, but also it reads jet lag, but also sleep disorder, obesitas, diabetes, cancer, cardiovascular disease. I mean, the medical people know that it's very important what time of the day you administer a drug, to be most effective. And so, because you have this periodic change in your cells. So the circadian clock is so important for your health and for the day rhythm, yeah, etc. And so we work together with this team, with Tsuyoshi Hirata and Ken Itami from Nagoya University. And what we did is we took a small molecule that binds to a crucial enzyme in the circadian clock rhythm mechanism. And we built in a light switch, as you can see, and we can switch on and off, yeah, and we can modulate, yeah, the circadian rhythm. This is called chronophotophαρμακology. And I think we were the first to show that you can shift the clock in a cell by 4 hours, back and forth. Can you imagine? You have your cell rhythm. This works in cells. We have not tested in human bodies yet. But in cells it works. You can shift the rhythm by 4 hours. So thanks to my colleagues here in Nagoya, we have this fantastic results. So, to summarize, facing our future, the bio-nano future, improving health and medicine, there is tremendous opportunities, you know, at the interface, interdisciplinary research, to join forces between chemistry, physics, biology, molecular biology, medical people, etc., to do new discoveries. Now, a molecular motor. You heard already what a molecular motor is, so I can be quicker, yeah? But your body is full of molecular motors, eh? When you go to the beach, you know that this is alive, eh? And the stone there, the cobble, is dead, because it moves. Yes? So it pushes, these molecular motors push you out of equilibrium. I have to tell you, on television, I often hear in a lifestyle program, be in equilibrium. Or I see some fancy magazine, eh? Lifestyle magazine. Be in equilibrium. You know, in a biological system, is out of equilibrium. If you are in equilibrium, you are dead. Sorry to say so. Be in harmony with yourself. You know that in Japan culture. A good harmony, a balance is fine. But don't be in equilibrium, eh? Please avoid equilibrium. This is what these machines do. So this is the most fantastic motor in the world. This is the ATPase rotary motor. It spins in your body. Yeah, it makes the fuel in your body, ATP. There are millions and billions of these motors now in your body. Do you know how much it produces? Did you ever think about that? Half your body weight every 24 hours. Can you imagine? Half your body weight? If you are 80 kilograms, 40 kilograms, if you are 60 kilograms, 30 kilograms, every day. ATPA. Yeah? It's absolutely fabulous. It spins, it rotates, it produces the fuel in your body. I enjoy very much Japanese food. We have beautiful food here, I enjoy. But I don't eat half my body weight every day, despite the good food. So what happens with these materials? It's all recycled. What is one of the most challenging problems for all of us? To recycle our materials, recycle plastics. Come on guys, we are not smart enough. Your body recycles half your body weight every 24 hours. This is what biology does. This is what we can learn from biology. But how to make a motor? It was mentioned earlier, how to control rotary motion, you have to put in fuel. And we wanted to fuel it with light energy. And how to control left and right. Because if you think of your car. If you go left or right, equal probability, you will never drive, you stand still. You have to go either in that direction or in that direction. Clockwise or counterclockwise. That's crucial. So how do we solve that problem? At the molecular level. Look, we use chirality, the stereochemistry, right or left. And the most beautiful example is DNA. You see, the Mona Lisa of modern science is what's called by nature. The right-handed helix of DNA. In your body, all the essential molecules, like DNA, yeah, the amino acids are left-handed, the sugars are right-handed, only one form. That's crucial for life. Of course, we have to distinguish between left and right. In Holland, you know, we have wooden shoes. You can also distinguish between left and right. You know that? This is how I learned it when I was a boy in the farm, to distinguish left and right. I tell you, you know, when as a small boy, you put your foot in the wrong wooden shoe, it hurts so much that you never forget what is the difference between left and right. So we built these tiny motors. This is the tiniest motor in the world. It's powered by light, as you heard already. It's 1 nanometer, 1 billionth of a meter in size. That is this axle. And you hit it with light, and it starts to rotate. Okay? And you have this chirality, as I mentioned before, the helix structure, yeah, and this metal substituents. So this either right-handed or left-handed, and that makes it rotating clockwise or counterclockwise once you put in the energy of light. Because you need the fuel. If there's no fuel in your car, no petrol, it will not drive. If there's no battery in your electric car, it will not drive. So we need also fuel, and we do it with light. So here it's powered by light energy. It goes in 4 steps, and it rotates. We can rotate clockwise, or we can rotate counterclockwise. Yes? So this is what we do. So this is how we build these motors. And now I want to give a message. So we built this is second generation motor, you know. You have here a stator, axle, and a rotor, and it rotates. And once again, I will give credit to our heroes and teachers, because you might wonder, why do you show this very old piece of paper? Yeah? And I will tell you, and some professors here will recognize. Sometimes I tell my students, when we make some new discovery or so, go to the literature and look what has been done by the previous groups, you know, by the professors, by the other groups in the world. And they go to the library or on the internet and they study, yeah, to find out what has been done. And then they come to me, Professor Ben, I cannot find anything, not even in the Journal of American Chemical Society or Angewandte Chemie or Nature or Science of 5 years ago. I said, 5 years ago? Yeah, nothing in the last 5 years. I said, look, we are standing on the shoulders of many of our big scientists. Beautiful work has done 50 years ago, 70 years ago. This is the foundation of science in every field. So look, this is Sir Derek Barton, another Nobel laureate. And in the 70s, yeah, 55 years ago, they discovered this reaction. And I don't want to go into details, but how to make this bond, this axle, this is crucial, eh? Because you rotate around. And it was so difficult for us to make this. Yeah, every method that has been developed in the last 20 years failed. But when we digged in the literature and we went back to the old literature, this journal does not exist anymore. This was Royal Society of Chemistry. Yeah? 55 years ago. And it worked perfectly to click the things together, to build this molecule. Can you imagine? So, to all the young students, don't forget that there is fantastic work that has been published 50, 60, 70 years ago that are the foundations for modern science. Modern science relies also on the heroes and the teachers of the past. This is one of my messages I want to convey to you today. So, we build these systems, and now we build even more complex systems because we're working also on more complex machines. You see here the axle, yeah, that I was talking about. So this is a light-driven motor, but you see another one here. And look carefully. You have now different motions that are coupled, synchronized motions. So if you stand here, you will always see the same phase of that part that is going around, the merry-go-round. My students looked at the moon. When we were discussing this design, they said, let's look at the moon, because the moon has synchronized motion. Now you might wonder, are these PhD students and master students in Groningen so romantic that they look at the moon every day? Now maybe, I don't know what they do in the evening, you know. Maybe they look at the moon. But you know there is something special about the moon, eh? Because we see only one face of the moon. The women or the men on the moon, we always see from the same side, eh? Also in Japan, eh? Except in China, eh? Because the Chinese put a satellite on the back side, and they can now see at the back side of the moon. We cannot do that. But you see, this is the same as with the moon going around the earth. Synchronized motion, yeah? And that is what we realized. And now we make more complex machinery, powered by light. Then I come to this beautiful work by our junior professor here, yeah, Ryojun Toyoda, and together with Lucas Pfeiffer, he made this motor that also shows photoluminescence. So it has a dual function, rotary motion and luminescence. And why was that so important? Because usually when you have these two properties, yeah, they don't work. But when we want to use the motors, for instance in cells and so, we also want to see it. And in biology and medical field, luminescence is so important that to target fluorescent imaging is so important. So he succeeded for the first time to make a motor that is also fluorescent. And that gives a lot of new opportunities because we still can rotate, can do dynamic function, because we can also detect when it's in a living cell. So that gives a lot of opportunity thanks to this young hero. So you all know now what a smartphone is, a flat screen. So we take these motors and we want to go in the future to soft robotics. That's a big challenge. And we thought, can we take advantage of these display materials, yeah, to make new smart materials? And so this is what we do. In a liquid crystal, you have rod-like molecules, and they organize, you know, and they give a helix organization when you put something which is right or left-handed. You need only a tiny amount, like our motor, and you make a helix. And the helix, yeah, believe it or not, that makes a color display, yeah, that makes the color pixel in your display. When you have a long helix, you have a red color, and when you have a short helix, you have a blue color. This is how you make a display. Changes the helix organization. This happens in your smartphone. So we thought, if we take this motor, can we spin it with light and then change the helicity? And look, we make every color pixel we can make just using the molecular motor. But then we went one step further. And this was one of the most important moments in my life. Eureka. Yeah? You see, this is a thin film of this material. Eh? So when you take the smartphone, can I have the smartphone for a second? You know, when you have this smartphone, behind the glass plate, yeah, there is soft material. Eh? That's the soft material. That's the liquid crystal material. Eh? If you push on the screen, you will feel it's soft. Eh? Don't push too hard, because you destroy the smartphone. I won't do it. You destroy the smartphone. But this is soft. This is a thin film of soft material. And you see this glass rod is swimming on top. The motor is so tiny you don't see it, and it's only very little. And the students came to me, the PhD students, and they came, I never forget, 5:15 in the lab on a Tuesday afternoon. And they said, Professor Ben, you have to come to the lab. We will show you some new experiment. And they did this. They showed me this, and then they switched on the light. We don't touch anything. They just switch on the light. You see? This is what we saw. It moves. The whole surface moves. The object moves. It spins in one direction. The color changes. It's all autonomous, thanks to this molecular motor. I could not speak for 5 minutes. I was completely speechless. You see, this was a real eureka moment, yeah, in my life. So we can transmit from the molecular motor 1 billion times all the way to micro object and to macro objects. And so now we use this to make muscles. You can see we can bend. We can take polymers that we can bend. And we can make things walking. So we have now these motors in these liquid crystal polymers. Yeah? And we can make robotic arms to pick up something. Yeah? Going back and forth. Or look at this. Yeah? This walks over the table. It's a piece of plastic. I don't know, in your kitchen, yeah? When you have a plastic bag in your kitchen and you switch in the morning on the light, do they start to walk? No, eh? We have now a piece of plastic that walks over the table. You can walk it towards your light. You irradiate and it starts walking. This is our stepping stone to soft robotics. Oh yeah, let me show the movie how it works. Yeah, then you will see how it works. So you have this, you see, this is the motor. It starts rotating. You have two small connectors. Then we connect it into a polymer. This is this liquid crystal units, you see. They are organized. They contract, they expand, contract, expand, thanks to the motor. Only light, eh? I don't touch it, eh? Only light and radiation. And you see it starts bending, and we make artificial muscles. Okay? And so it starts with tiny molecules, yeah? This tiny molecule, 1 nanometer, inside, yeah, the polymer liquid crystal organization, and we make muscles. And now we grow stem cells in these systems. So we have artificial muscles based on water. We grow stem cells, and we can control the behavior of stem cells. I don't have time to discuss all these examples, but we try to make artificial muscle cell, tissue and so, and use it for hospital application. Now, I am in Holland, and you know in Holland we like tulips, but in particular we like windmills. And this is the old classic windmill, this is a modern windmill that you also see in Japan. Eh? But we will build a tiny windmill. You see here the legs, stator, axle and rotor. Put it on a gold nanoparticle. Professor Komura, Dr. Komura was involved, yeah? And you see here, this is a nano windmill. And yes, we build a nano windmill park. You see, this is what our ancestors did. If you come to Holland, you will see this. 500 years ago. Now, we build a nano, one layer on the surface. This is 20 meters, this is 2 nanometers. 1 billion times smaller. So why do we do this? Is it just playing? The students in my lab? Look, what we do now. Self-cleaning and self-repair surfaces and materials. You know, conventional glass, self-cleaning glass. Solar panels that can clean them. Your car. In the future, we will make coatings. You don't have to clean your car anymore. It will clean itself because it's dynamic. Yeah? And when you have a scratch in your car or in a glass, you have to repair it. Eh? Or in a car, you have to go to the garage. But you know, when recently I had a scratch in my finger. When you keep it clean, you don't have to do anything. Eh? It repairs itself. Why not making materials that are dynamic and responsive and repair itself? So to the young people, in 25 years from now, you will see coatings on cars that repair themselves under the influence of light. Maybe not with my motors, but once you know the fundamental principles, how to make things dynamic, we make responsive, dynamic, self-healing, self-cleaning materials. Self-healing materials, also for biomedical application. Several people in the world are working on that now. So, it's beautiful that you get nice discoveries, yeah? But this is maybe even more beautiful. I got a nice award in Stockholm, yeah? And a few others. But this is maybe the most beautiful award. I was in Berlin, yeah? And this artist had put graffiti on the wall. And look, here is a tripod, here is our motor. He had seen our publication, one or maybe in the press or in a journal, and he put this motor, yeah, this windmill, on his graffiti. Isn't it cool? I think that is a great honor for the scientist, you know, that an artist uses your design. Yeah, this was in Berlin when I visited there, and no, yeah, it was mentioned the nano car. Yeah, I was asked many times, you know, can you also build a nano car? So we built a 4-wheel drive. You see. Molecular car powered by solar energy. It's a 4-wheel drive. This is a solar-powered car that they use for the solar-powered car race in Australia. Yeah? 2 meters. This is 2 billion of a meter. Yeah? And we build it, and it drives, you see it driving here, and it drives over a surface. Now, you might wonder, why do these scientists build molecular cars? Of course, it was not to build a car. It was to prove that you go like a real car, rotation to translation, to move forward. And this was very tough. It took us 5 years, yeah, with a team of 5 people to build it. But we made it, and we made it moving. And you see it moving here. This is a single car moving over a copper surface, yeah, from rotation to translation. And now, you might wonder, how does this really move? Because the nano world is a bit different from the real world. If I lift my arm, there are millions and millions of motors that walk, yeah, to make the filament moving, yeah, millions together. These are nano motors, the biological motors. And so, in reality, this moves like this. You see? This is how the car moves. So it's like a stepping motion, just like in biology. Okay? This is the nano. Welcome in the nano world. And if you don't believe me, yeah, I borrowed a movie from my colleagues from biology. Look, this is what happens in your cells now. You see, the highway, yeah, from here to Tokyo is built when a car has to pass. Then when the car has passed by, it's broken down. It's all fully dynamic. And now in your cells, millions and millions of times this happens in seconds. You see, this is how your body works. This is nanotechnology. This is how it works. This is how, can you imagine you are alive? This is transporters in your body. This is how it works. Transport things from one side to the other. So maybe our nano car is not so bad after all. And we try now to use it, of course, for transport and all these kind of things. So this is a modern electric car. Sorry, I still show a Tesla. I should use another one, but nowadays. But this is a Tesla, and this is our nano car. Look, modern electric car, this is nano car. You see this powder? This is 1 million times 1 billion identical nano cars, this tiny powder. I would say our car manufacturing plant has a very good production, eh? Thank you. So this is, and then it was mentioned already, there was this in Toulouse, the four-wheel drive, the nano car race, the Formula 1, yeah, 36-hour live race for nano cars, yeah? And the winners were James Stewart and Leonard Grill. They used a little bit different design. They made one after our design, but they had not a motor. So it was a bit, you should mention it next time, they were cheating. Because what they did is, they had no motor in it. So they could not power. What they did is, they took the tip of the needle, yeah, and they pushed it. That was not so fair. Anyway, they won. So this is the nano car race. So let me finish my lecture. Will we have nano robots? Yeah? Some of you will remember this beautiful book and movie, Fantastic Voyage, by Asimov. And there was some, you know, I know there is a famous brain professor here. There was this book, he knows this. You have this tiny robot that was injected in the body and it went into the brain to make a repair. Eh? Okay, can you imagine? A tiny robot that goes in your brain and it is programmed to do a repair in your brain when there is something defect. It's absolutely beautiful. So, will we have nano robots? And so what we did is we took a carbon nanotube. This is very famous nowadays, carbon nanotubes. They are used everywhere in electronics and so. And we put two enzymes that can convert glucose. Because we were discussing with the students, if you want to move something in your body, what is the fuel? And of course, there is plenty of sugar, carbohydrates. So we use sugar water. This is sugar water. And you see it moving. And it moves thanks to the enzymes that convert sugar and generate oxygen. These bubbles are oxygen. And so it's like a rocket or a submarine. So sugar is converted, generates gas, and we propel it. Of course, it's extremely primitive. Eh? We cannot very well control it yet. You have to steer it and to transport. But this is the first steps. Again, I don't do anything. I only add sugar. And then it moves. So, will we have nanorobots? Is it science or science fiction? I predict today that in 50 years from now, the surgeon will inject a nanorobot in your body, in your blood vein, and that will go somewhere programmed to deliver a drug to detect a defect or do a small repair. Now the first steps have been made by scientists, and in the future, think of your smartphone, 50 years from now, we might indeed have nanorobots, for biomedical application and maybe for other things. But I'm a scientist, I'm not good at prediction. So the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And this is what we all do together, okay? We try to invent our future. So, I talked today about the art of building small, a perspective for the future. We start with Mother Nature, we build switches and motors, and we make smart drugs, responsive materials. We try to make molecular machines and maybe soft robotics for the future. This is a bit science fiction still, but in the future you will see this kind of application. So going from static to dynamic motion, you can think about lots of fancy applications. But of course, chemistry as the creating science, we also have to look what society tells us. I showed you this picture before. What are the challenges we have to face? Yeah. So I mean, when you have dynamic systems, maybe it's easier to recycle our plastics, maybe to make smart pharmaceuticals in the future. But I could not do anything, wasn't it, for new ways also in the laboratory. So we just installed robotics, and we also use AI, because this is becoming very important also for science, to use AI. I don't have time, we can discuss later, yeah? But we have now robotics, and we try to do discoveries also using AI and robotics to accelerate discoveries. And so this is the most important slide. These are my students, at least part of the students. Yeah, the team is bigger. But we share a passion to invent our future. And it's thanks to all these young talents. I have people in my group from 13 different countries. And together they make a fantastic team to discover our future. And so, discover your talents. This is a message for the young students. Follow your dreams. Be confident. Because sometimes it's really tough, and you will have failures. Discover your energy. What is your passion? What gives you energy? And discover your limits. How high can you set the bar? Don't be afraid when something is too difficult. Sometimes it's difficult. And then you put the bar a bit high. But when you succeed, it gives such a good feeling, It's great. Okay? An adventure in the unknown. For all the senior people here, it was also an adventure when we started as students. Okay? We all were students, and we were all uncertain, and it was an adventure. But I give you one advice: follow your dreams and discover your talent. That's the most important. So, when I was a young boy, look, this is me, just before high school. Okay? I'm from a family of 10. I have 9 brothers and sisters. I'm the second oldest. This is my older brother. So, did I know I would ever go to Stockholm and get a Nobel Prize? Of course, at this time, I was dreaming maybe to become an adventurer or discoverer or whatever. But I wanted to be a farmer. But my father said, look, I have younger brothers. Maybe you should study first. Yeah, and then we will see again. So I never became a farmer. Did I know I would get a Nobel Prize? No, of course not. You work hard at the university, you teach, yeah. But sometimes people say, maybe this field, But then I got a call in 2011 from America. That was, a colleague called me from Wisconsin, and he said, Ben, you were on American television last night. And I said, come, you are kidding. Why? I'm a chemist at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. Why should I be on the American television? He said, yes. This was the week before the Nobel Prize was announced. This is the last week of September, because the Nobel Prize are always announced first week of October, every year. And this was in The Simpsons, I hope you remember this program, The Simpsons, very comic program, yeah, on American television. And they made a betting pool. You see, chemistry, Zaar, Mörner, Feringa, Shonakashira. Now, Mörner got the Nobel Prize in 2014. I had to wait another 2 years. The next morning, I came to the lab, and the students, of course, had seen this on the internet, and they said, Professor Ben, you will get the Nobel Prize. Predicted by The Simpsons. I said, look, guys, if I'm on American television, predicted by The Simpsons, this is maybe the highest honor you can get as a scientist, But then I had, after 2 years, I got this invitation, to go to Stockholm, and this is the king and the queen and the princesses, and I got this beautiful medal. It was like a fairy tale. It was a dream, yeah, the greatest honor. And then we had a nice dinner, you see, for 1,200 guests, 4-hour dinner. It was absolutely, I'm sitting here somewhere opposite the queen. It was fantastic dinner and a fantastic event. And then I came back in Groningen, and I was honored there as well, of course. And then I gave a whole day lectures for students, for kids from schools, elementary school and high school. And then at the end of the day, they said, we want to give him something. Yeah, a small present, you know. But then they said, look, let's look how they do this in America. You know, this is Sir Fraser Stoddart, Northwestern University near Chicago. So reserved parking for Sir Fraser Stoddart, 2016 Nobel Laureate in Chemistry, permits 01 and 02. This is his limousine. So in front of the chemistry department in the university, he has two big parking lots, and he can park his limousine there. Private parking for Nobel Laureate. Then they said, yeah, but we cannot do this because Ben never comes by car, he always bikes. So now, in the biking shed of the university, before our chemistry, there is this small plaque, this size, yeah? Bicycle parking space reserved for Nobel laureates. I'm so honored, you know. This is my special biking spot for Nobel laureate. You know, this is how we do things. America is great, you know that, eh? Holland is small. This is how we do things in Holland. But I'm very honored with this. So let me finish with my hero, Leonardo da Vinci. 500 years ago, he said, where nature finishes producing its own species, man begins with the help of nature to create an infinity of species. And for all the young talents here, I hope I convince you today, imagine the unimaginable. The future is yours. Follow your dreams. Thank you.